Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, the Philippines confirming another case of the novel coronavirus.
The patient was probably towards the end of the illness at that time.
The health department says they are on top of the situation.
This January 4, we were already communicating with regards to these cases increasing.
But are they doing enough to prevent its spread?
Be the first one to admit it's not easy to do this.
And later, lawmakers raising concerns on China's involvement in the country's power grid.
This is where the problem is. The government hasn't inspected, or the government has been prevented from inspecting.
And the government's move to possibly terminate the visiting forces agreement with the United States. Senator Win Gatchalian joins us live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. The World Health Organization reports that cases of the novel coronavirus continues to increase, with the death toll now reaching 564 as of Thursday morning. Majority of them are in mainland China, one in Hong Kong and one in the Philippines. 27,602 people in over 25 countries have now been infected. But as of Wednesday, over 900 people worldwide have already recovered from the virus. The World Health Organization is calling for $675 million in donations for a plan to fight the novel coronavirus. Here at home, health authorities said that a third patient confirmed to have the novel coronavirus, but she's already back home in Wuhan, China. And later, lawmakers expressed concerns on the role of China in the country's power supply, and is the Philippines ready to terminate the visiting forces agreement with the United States? Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Senate Energy Committee Chairman, Senator Win Gatchalian. Senator, always good to have you. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
We don't know if we should shake hands or... All right, Senator, let's start with the novel coronavirus. There's a third case. She's a 60-year-old woman from Wuhan. I feel this is a little tricky because she already left the country.
Right.
So she arrived in January 21 from Wuhan to Cebu, Cebu to Bohol.
Correct.
Had herself checked in a hospital, let her out, and then they find out that she's positive of the novel coronavirus. How do we address situations like this?
Well, I think my initial reaction is capability, no? And I was listening at the reports of the DOH, and apparently for the third one, this person was tested negative and then tested positive. No? And this goes to show that we don't have that capability yet to determine positively and quickly. Importante dito, Pink, is the
speed,
the pace and the speed, and because that will also dictate how fast we can contain and how fast we can track the people who had contact with this person. So this goes to show that we lack capability. This goes to show that we need to invest in capability, and also the process whenever this type of occurrences, this type of epidemic or pandemic will happen later on.
But here's the thing, Senator, in the Senate hearing, it was found out then, 2 days ago, that 17% of the 300 plus, right,
Yes.
were contacted.
Correct.
That's a small percentage. So you have your co-senator saying, DOH, medyo mabagal kayo dito.
In this particular case, this is a very technical and medical case. No? And the president would rely on medical experts to advise him. And when this was exploding during December, early part of January, the DOH should have already flagged the president. Because if you look at statistics, basically we had last year, in 2019, close to 2 million Chinese tourists entering the country. No? This is because of the increase in bilateral relationship with China and the Philippines. Tourism is growing, and then you have the POGO factor is also growing. So in other words, 2 million Chinese are coming to the Philippines. No? And without curbing that, you will have an influx of Chinese from all over China coming into the Philippines. So, meaning the DOH should have been prudent. When this was already coming out and this was already becoming a national or a global crisis, DOH should have advised the President to wait. Siguro unahin na muna natin to curb the flights or to stop the flights from Wuhan and from Hubei.
Right.
And then later on, when it was still becoming a global issue, stop the flights from China, Hong Kong, and Macau.
So you feel like medyo nagkulang ang DOH sa pag-alala sa Pangulo
Right.
doon?
The President is not a doctor. No? He will rely on experts to advise him in this particular case, no? Because this is very technical and very medical in nature. So the DOH should have been prudent. Because now that we have identified 3 people, it's very difficult to track people who have been in contact with this person, especially if you have this person took 3 flights, no? Coming from here, coming to Cebu, going to Dumaguete, then Dumaguete to Manila. So we're talking about 600 passengers.
Yeah.
Locating 600 passengers is no easy feat because these people are all over the country. No? And knowing our system, we don't have a national ID system in place. It's very difficult to track them. It will take time. But then again, this should not have happened.
But do you actually think the DOH was on top of this? Why? I say that, sir, because they're saying that the airlines weren't cooperative. The airlines are saying, no, we have been cooperative.
This should not happen. In this type of potential national crisis, this should not happen. We should have taken precautionary measures by reducing the flights or banning flights from China. And again, no,
Did you call for that before, though?
I did.
You did?
I did.
When?
I did.
Do you know when?
The first instance, the first instance that we had detection of first instance
That's
that we had
January 30,
correct.
sir.
The first instance that we had coronavirus
positive corona.
in the country.
So the female, that was January 30. However, sir, Feb 1 was they banned the flights.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
But I think...
Then again, we have to rely on experts. This is, in fact, in the medical field, this is actually a very specialized field. And that's why we have to rely on experts. And now this type of occurrences is becoming quite often. No? We had SARS, we had MERS, we had H1N1 virus. It goes to show that our capability needs to be strengthened.
So how would you describe the way the DOH is handling the situation? Kulang mo ba?
I'll divide this into 2 types, 2 processes. No? The first one is the prevention. Bakit nakapunta itong virus dito sa atin? Considering, if you look at if you go back to statistics, you have 2 million Chinese coming in the country. No? And this is a large amount of warm bodies coming into the country. So this should have been a red flag already within the DOH system. And then second, the response. No? Nangyari na yan dito. And the first instance should be immediate travel ban to curb the influx of potential carriers into our country. So in short, the prevention, I really feel that we were slow in doing so. No? And in this case, it's the responsibility of the DOH to advise the President. And then in the response, we're also slow in doing so, no? Because it took us time also to ban the flights. Again, these are all technical terms, and experts should be listened to, even specialized experts within the medical field, and the President should be advised accordingly.
So let's move forward. I mean, I want to go back, again, just very briefly to that contact tracing. You're right, it's very difficult to...
It's very difficult. Dapat hindi na mangyayari doon because once it enters into the country, tracing all 600 passengers or more, it's a very difficult task. We live in an island, archipelagic country. It's very difficult to track all of them.
And that's why I bring up the third woman who's positive of the coronavirus, who's back in China. I mean, you look at it, she arrived in January 21, and again, she tested negative, and then eventually when she left, it was found out that she was positive.
Correct.
Now you're going to have to go back to those passengers who were with her from Wuhan to Cebu, Cebu to Bohol.
Correct. In this type of occurrences, no, I don't claim to be an expert, Pinky, but from what I observe all over the world, and also I think when SARS came in and the MERS came in, I was a local government official at that time, and we were trying to simulate, paano kung nangyari ito sa amin? How do we track all of these people? It's very difficult. No? That's why the strategy here is to prevent carriers to come in. No? especially when this type of virus is already spreading like wildfire in other countries.
But do you think that we have the capability to contact trace?
We have the capability, but it takes time. It takes time because if you look at how, just do it yourself. The addresses, they're not. You have to validate whether they live there. We were not even sure if they put in the right addresses.
Right.
There's no penalty if you don't put the right address. If they don't put the cell number, it's hard for us to contact this person.
Yeah.
And just contacting one family to the other is very difficult.
I just want to put that on air, sir. It's difficult to trace these people.
It's very difficult. That's why the strategy is really to prevent it.
Okay.
Because once it hits here, the amount of time, effort, and resources to track all of those, it will take time.
So prevention now, you're also calling on schools to tighten security protocols in schools. What should schools be doing? Because even in the past, you already have schools suspending on their own without even then the secretary knowing about it.
Correct. Well, unofficially, we have about 500,000 POGO workers here. So if these workers, they come here, they bring their families, their kids go to our school. So it's also, the schools need to make sure that they know their students, they know where they're from, and implement preventive measures. I have to commend the Chinese schools for being ahead of the preventive measures. They suspended classes almost for a week, 2 weeks ahead of the first coronavirus indication. So I have to commend them because they were very conscious of their students. And they were conscious of where their students came from.
Yeah, in fact, they went a step further because we reported that it was Uno High School and
Chiang
Chiang Kai-shek, right?
All the Chinese schools in that corridor.
Area, no?
In that
Hindi,
corridor.
ang maganda pa doon, Senator, there was one school, I think it was Uno, who said that those who may have come from a country infected with the virus should do self-quarantine. Meron pa silang ganon.
Correct. They had protocols, no? But what's the admirable part there is they were conscious of what's happening. And they didn't wait for government to say, oh, dapat kayo
And you support that?
I support that. I support proactiveness.
Yeah, but you don't think that they should wait for the Department of Health to say...
Correct. So some of
independent.
Some of the schools suspended ahead. In fact, some of the airlines suspended flights ahead of the government declaration. I have to also give... in fairness, some of the foreign airlines also canceled their flights from China. So a lot of the private companies were already very conscious of doing this. So the private sector equally should be conscious of what's happening, and they could implement preventive measures to prevent the spreading in their own organization.
All right, we'll be taking a short break. We're going to talk about the country's power grid. Is it at risk because of China's involvement? Senator Win Gatchalian tells us more after the break. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Senator Win Gatchalian. There's a problem, sir, on Filipinos here in Manila who want to go back to Hong Kong. Ano sila nagbakasyon dito. Gusto nilang ipagpatuloy yung trabaho nila sa Hong Kong. Sir, meron din po tayong mga kababayan na nasa Macau na yung kanilang pamilya nandun at gusto nang umuwi. There's a lot of complications there because yung visa nila, yung pera nila, tsaka yung trabaho nila pagbalik ng Hong Kong. What's a good solution because they're appealing for some flights?
Correct. That is where the Department of Foreign Affairs will play a heavy role. And in fact, the DFA made a lot of pronouncement early part of this year, middle part of January in terms of preparation. And I remember as soon as America declared that they will bring home a lot of their constituents from Wuhan, the DFA also responded the same. So it's up to our consulate and our embassies to make sure that our OFWs are well taken care of in that area, to give them assistance, whether it's financial assistance or assistance for them to come home, and to also implement quarantine in their area. Those OFWs who are clear and they should be allowed to come back home. The DFA is also ready to charter flights to bring back. So in this case, the DFA has been quite responsive. In fact, there were regular updates, no less than from our DFA secretary who loves to tweet. So we get regular real-time updates on what DFA is doing.
So that seems to be, you seem to be satisfied with that, knowing that we heard the lockdown in Wuhan happened January
About early
21,
yeah,
22,
yeah,
something like that,
yeah,
sir.
Right.
14 days later, or yeah, it's Feb 5, we are finally going to bring back our kababayans from
Correct,
Wuhan. There's
right.
40 of them who are supposed to arrive this Saturday. So you feel that they've been on top of the
I
situation?
think what's the most important part here is information, and DFA has been constantly giving information to the general public on who to call, what to do, and the tracking also of our kababayans in Wuhan and also the rest of China. The consulate, the embassies, from what I read in Twitter and also in social media, has been quite active in giving information. So proactiveness, again, from the Foreign Affairs Department is very important so that our OFW will know how to respond and where to go.
Okay, we need to talk about the NGCP. The Energy Committee, of course, which you head, is possibly found grounds to possibly, number one, definitely to review, and number two, possibly revoke the franchise of the NGCP. Just in summary, Senator, tell us why.
Well, let's put this in context first, no, Pinky. Why is the national transmission grid important to all of us? No? This is the only one of its kind. Isa lang to sa buong bansa natin. It transmits electricity from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So if something happens to our grid, we don't have electricity. And we all know that we cannot live any second without electricity. Our economy will collapse without electricity. So it's important that our electricity grid, our transmission lines, transmission grids, are reliable and especially secure in this day and age. Cyber terrorism and cybersecurity is a clear and present danger. It happened in Ukraine in 2015 and 2016, wherein hackers attacked their grids and collapsed their transmission lines, and widespread blackouts happened in Ukraine. So this can happen to us. No? It can be implemented by state actors or even non-state actors. These are the cyber terrorism, so to speak. So, importante in integrity ng grid and security of our grid. And our Constitution places safeguards there. One of which, number one, 60% should be owned by Filipinos. No? That's one of the safeguards, meaning Filipinos should own this national grid. Second, Filipinos should control management and the executive position. And this is where the problem happened. Because during the hearing, Senator Gordon pointed out that a certain Wenbo signed contracts in behalf of National Grid as their chief technical officer, which is the second highest ranking official in NGCP. So my first question is...
Siya si number 2, boss. Kumbaga.
Siya yung number 2. No? Hindi lang to ordinary number 2.
Yeah.
Pinky, it controls operation and maintenance in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. This is not a supporting role. This is an operation role. No? So meaning he can dictate the operations in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, all of its activities there. So in the Constitution, it's very clear. No? Management and executive position should be with the Filipinos. So the first question, bakit pinayagan ng local shareholders na isang foreigner should occupy is the second highest position in NGCP?
But how sure are you that he's a foreigner?
Because we have contracts that he signed, and they admitted on record. I asked them. We didn't even point out the nationality. We asked them, no? Did you allow a foreigner to occupy the second highest position in NGCP at any point of your concession agreement, which started in 2009? Yeah. And the answer was an affirmative. So this is clearly a violation of the Constitution. And when Congress enacted the franchise, the basis is the Constitution. No? So Congress gave the franchise. One of the basis that that franchise was laid upon is the Constitution.
You're right. Section 11, Article 12 of the 1987 Constitution provided that all executive and managing officers of such corporations or associations must be citizens of the Philippines. So here's my question, Senator. So you were at that Senate hearing. You were heading that Senate hearing. Senator Richard Gordon says there's a Wenbo that signed. They said, yes, a foreigner at some point did this. If you said it's a clear violation, why are you just threatening? Why are you saying you have until Feb 10 to allow the Department of Energy to audit you.
Correct.
Why?
Correct. In the concession agreement, Pinky, there's also a mechanism there wherein government can exercise its check and balance rule. Of course, NGCP said that they are doing their job, they're doing all these cybersecurity projects, but that's from their point of view. Now, government cannot validate that, and government since 2009 haven't validated any of the projects that they have mentioned because there's no inspection that happened ever since.
2009?
2009
when
they started.
2017. Okay.
When they started. No?
Okay.
So, meaning government should exercise its check and balance role. And part of it is the validation process, no? To look at the documents, to look at the records, to talk to the NGC employees. That's part of the concession agreement. So, meaning government should be playing its role as the check and balance mechanism of this transmission grid. The transmission grid, again, it's no ordinary business. This is not a small business. This is a huge monopoly business.
Imbued with national security.
Imbued with national security.
Interest. Yun ang importante.
Correct. Yun ang pinakamalaga. No? And it's one of its kind. It's a monopoly in our country.
Yeah.
So we have to treat it with extra care, with extra diligence. And government should exercise its check and balance to make sure that the grid is secure and protected.
So when is the review?
Well, we gave them until
Feb 10.
Yes, Feb 10 Monday to
Feb 10 to answer you if they agree to the
answer
review?
the committee, because I know for a fact that they have to talk to their board, they have to talk to their management. But this is government's exercising its check and balance rule.
Right.
No? And DOE, we have to remember.
And that's my
Pinky,
question. Is it DOE or the ERC?
DOE is the alter ego of the president. And the president also chairs the National Security Council.
Yeah.
So meaning in the context of national security, the president can delegate powers. No? And DOE, since it's the technical arm and the general supervisor of the power system or the power industry, it's a DOE's role to make sure that the grid is always protected.
But in their franchise agreement, does it not state that it's the ERC that's supposed to look into it and not the DOE? Is that correct,
In their
sir?
concession agreement, there were a lot of provisions there that will allow government to inspect. ERC, when it comes to rates,
Pricing.
pricing, Transco and PSAM when it comes to performance. And when we say performance, it's a very broad term. No? Performance meaning the integrity of the grid should be part of that performance
see.
inspection.
All right, again, we'll be taking a short break. We'll be right back. So parang they said that. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Senator Win Gatchalian. Just for the benefit of everyone, Senator, I know you're very good at this, but so the NGCP is owned by a private company, but it needs to be 60% owned. But the infrastructure,
It's still owned by the government.
it's owned by which is Transco.
Transco, correct.
Okay.
Which is Transco.
So-
Which is Transco.
You want the DOE, the Energy Department, to review it, not just a technical audit, but also a management audit.
audit. To look at the records. No?
Okay, so you see anomalies. What's next?
Yes.
If you see anomalies, rather.
The proper procedure is to go and conduct the audit, inspect the records through DOE, because DOE has a technical capability, and DOE can delegate its inspection process to Transco, who was previously the operator of this transmission line. So they have the engineers, no? They have the technical people. And then validate the records, no? Because in the concession agreements, Transco is given the authority to validate the records. Titignan natin records kung meron talagang violation, for example, in terms of personnel, in terms of
So
operations.
if there is a violation.
If there's a violation, then, and if it's a violation of the Constitution, then there's grounds to revoke the franchise.
Sorry, we're running out of time. And if you revoke, who's going to run this?
Transco can
Again,
also run this.
babalik.
Babalik sa Transco has been running this ever since time immemorial, and they have the technical capability. In fact, Transco's technical capability remains in Transco.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, the cyber attacks came out
Yes,
also
yes.
during the Senate hearing.
Actually, we were all
Did you
surprised.
almost fall off your seat
Correct.
knowing that they've been attacked 100 times?
Correct. And this is really a manifestation that we're vulnerable. No? It's not very clear where the attacks are coming from, but that volunteered information came as a surprise to all of us because as we speak, we're being attacked. No? And people can cause havoc in our electricity grid. So governments need to know all of this. No? so that we will put measures in place to prevent and to protect our electricity
I
grid.
think your
Even
question-
DICT didn't know about it. Katabi nila yung DICT, nagulat rin sila.
And I think your question was where and from whom
Correct.
yung
Correct.
attacks.
But without any details,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to analyze what's going on. And especially the experts, government experts such as the DICT, should be consulted because DICT is the authority that will implement our cybersecurity strategy.
So the next hearing, I mean, the next time you're going to speak to them is February 10. Just very quickly, I want to move topics. VFA, are you inclined, sir, to support the sense of the Senate? Senate President Tito Soto, Senator Franklin Drilon, Senator Ping Lacson, wanting a review of the VFA before its cancellation.
Yes, I think the proper process is to review it independently and objectively. Definitely, there are a lot of issues in the VFA. For example, the issue of fairness. Are we being treated fairly in the agreement, in the VFA? And the effectivity of the VFA. We've seen a lot of exercises. We've seen a lot of interoperability exercises, but we don't know the effectivity of this. And we need to know, in the context of the Mutual Defense Treaty, where is the VFA and how is it effective? And what are the measurable goals in terms of effectivity?
So you're not inclined to cancel it. You want to review it
We have
first.
to review first. Admittedly, there are things that we need to amend in order to make it fairer for our country and our countrymen. And the process there is to review it independently and objectively.
But was the cancellation of the visa of Senator Bato de la Rosa a good reason to review the VFA?
It's a continuous review. In my point of view, we have to continuously review all agreements, no? Not limited to VFA, but even the EDCA and even the MTD.
Yeah.
In light of new technologies, new geopolitical scenarios, we have to continuously review all of this.
How about the timing of the review and the cancellation of the visa of Senator Bato?
This should be treated separately, in my point of view, because the VFA has been there a long time ago and it needs to be reviewed. And there was no review process, so to speak. And this is the perfect time to review it. In fact, today at 10 a.m., we will have a Senate hearing to review the VFA and to advise and to recommend what to do next.
Headed by Senator Coco
Correct.
Pimentel. Senator Win Gatchalian, always a pleasure. Maraming salamat
Thank you,
po sa
thank
inyo.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.